Hello, everybody. Happy Monday, June 24th, 2024. You are here for How to Ace Your Product Management Interview. My name is Albert of Albert's List, and I will be your host today. And with me as my co-host is Stephen Cognetta, founder of Exponent, a company that helps you land your next dream job in tech. We're here today specifically to talk about the dream job as being product management, which Stephen knows a lot about as a former product manager at Google. He'll talk today about the ins and outs of acing that product management interview, providing tips, tricks, and more. For all of you, feel free to watch along, ask any questions, and we'll address them as we go through things or at the end. We'll also have a recording of this webinar to show you in a day or so, and you can watch more then as well. Actually, no, let me backtrack that. We don't have a recording necessarily, but we will be able to share with you some of the content at a later date as well. So without further ado, Stephen, over to you.
Hey everyone, really nice to meet you. Thanks, Albert, for the intro. I am going to share my screen and just get this set up. I tend to like to do, can everyone just give me a thumbs up in the chat if you can see what I'm presenting. And this will, thank you so much for the hands up. I tend to like doing these very interactive, so we're gonna just jump straight into it and see how it goes. So first off, easy question. These are some Google Doodles, which you're probably familiar with. Can anyone tell me what any of the Google Doodles are on this page? Does anyone know what they represent or what days they're representing? And feel free to post in the chat. Okay, Cynthia, yep, you got it. On the bottom left is Kimchi Day, which is apparently a day. Anyone else get the other three? Cactus Day is a great guess. I wish that was a holiday, but it's not quite. Holi, the Indian Festival of Color, is on the top right. Desert Sun in Arizona is not quite right. Pride, no, but thematically the right month. First flight across the Atlantic, not the first flight. Notice there's like circles around it, which are representing sound. Maybe that's a clue. And for the cactus one, what is it about the relationship between the two cacti? There's something about the fact that there's sonar radio is kind of close, but there's a specific effect. So it's the D. And for the cactus one, there's a kind of an older cactus and a younger cactus. Family, but is there a specific day, maybe? Top right's not Juneteenth. No, top right is holy. So it's an effect on the starts. It's an F day. It's yep. Sam or Sam got it correct. It's Father's Day. The one on the bottom right. You can see a father cactus with a daughter cactus. But what about the one on the top left? Anyone got that one? It's a D effect. Doppler, Patrick, great job. It's the Doppler effect in Akshta as well. Okay, so we had a lot of fun guessing Google Doodles, and they're always fun to kind of see on the Google homepage. But let's say that you are a product manager and you are working on the Google Doodles team. What I'd like to hear is what metrics would you evaluate to determine whether or not a Google Doodle is effective? So what metrics would you determine? Okay, clicking to learn more, clicks. I didn't want to and if you can use your hand raise mechanism and then I can call on you and we can hear from you why you think that would be effective. And Sue, I'm gonna go ahead and allow you to talk. I don't know if it's for this or
Yeah, I was just thinking that engagement would be a good metric that, the time spent on the page or even the click-throughs and the reads, the eyeballs, the impressions.
okay. Engagement, yeah. I'm hearing that one, and that's a really great suggestion. That's kind of what a lot of people are suggesting. Does anyone in the group have a differing opinion? So we'll move on from that, Sue, and then does anyone have a differing opinion or a concern if we only do engagement? What might happen? Akshita? Actually, I think you need to unmute. Anyone else? Anyone else have an idea of what might be causing what might be a bad result of a focus on engagement as a metric? Okay, Honorbon, we need to create a revenue stream, so maybe we should be prioritizing revenue, conversion rate. But I'm not quite seeing. Well, can someone tell me like what would happen? Let's say distracting. Okay, Ali, or if you're up to talk, what are you saying with distracting customers from Google search?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, so basically, like customers, they went to Google for a purpose, right? Their job to be done is to search for something. So if they see the doodle and then they click on it and engage on it, they're being distracted from their main job or their main purpose.
Yeah, and maybe we would make a Google Doodle that has a big flashing play button, and that flashing play button might make it so that people can't actually see the search results that they want to see and stuff like that. So there's a concern that if we just prioritize that metric, we might run into some trouble. Anyone else have any thoughts on what we might do if engagement seems like a good metric, but what are we supposed to do if we also might run into some problems if we solely prioritize engagement? Any ideas? And hands up preferred over messaging, I think, at this point, so we can just quickly hear from people. Okay, Jen, yeah.
I think my question is going to be what would actually be that engagement? Are they engaging into more searches, or are they engaging more into I just want to explore whatever the doodle is that's making that looks really cool? And then from there,
Sure.
it's just like where do you go next? Do you search up the particular holiday? Do you look at articles? There's so much to do with that one image. The problem is what kind of engagement are what is the main engagement metric that we're looking at, and what's the main goals into that?
Totally, yeah. And maybe what you're describing is sort of like an engagement oriented toward a searching journey in Google. That might be a positive thing versus maybe I just click the button and I'm curious and I'm like, that was kind of lame or something like that.
And I could also see that you can also use that engagement can also go into the Google Ads program. So if someone has actually clicked that, we can also hopefully see if somebody's actually going to click on the advertisement that someone is paid for, which is a revenue generating stream,
For
if I'm
sure.
not mistaken.
For sure. Okay, well, now let's say that, we took Jen's advice, and this will be my last question on this one, and we prioritize, sort of engagement and, just general kind of search journey. And we find out that Hamburger Day, it crushes it. Hamburger Day crushes all metrics. People love clicking on it. People buy hamburgers after they click on that Google Doodle. People are really engaged with it. It's a lot of views. People love Hamburger Day. And people love French fries day. They also love, chicken nuggets day. And so one of the PMs on the team proposes to everyone, say, hey, let's do, Hamburger Day, French fries day. Let's cut all the rest of the doodles and just focus on these. These are the highest engaging doodles. The metrics show that this is correct. Can anyone tell me what you might say to a PM on the team who said that? If not, we might have to go for it. All right, Sam?
Hey, yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, I think like anything, that may just be an assumption. So I think with any assumption, what you need to do is validate it with some sort of A/B test. So my suggestion would be, hey, that's a great finding. Let's prove it.
Okay, well, let's say I run it and it beats the Holy Doodle, it beats the Kimchi Day Doodle. No one wants to click on the Kimchi Day. They always want to click on hamburgers instead. So should we run? Do you think that proves it? We should run with it? And either you can answer or someone else can answer.
I think my last point would be you would need to track if there's any kind of secondary metrics that are being affected by that. Like what I would imagine is if you just cut all the other doodles, others that are maybe not looking for a food-based doodle may be frustrated with the experience. So you have to account for the total user base not just like, you know, the highest converting folks as a part of that. But
Okay, Neville, you also wanted to add something?
Just to reiterate what I typed in the chat, which is that the problem with like focusing on hamburger day is that like these things are liked by the majority. And so we might end up, you know, by focusing on these metrics, we might end up only like highlighting those doodles that the majority of the world likes, and as a result might not bring to attention. If the purpose of the Google Doodle program is to bring to attention underserved, underknown things, we might not end up serving that purpose.
Got it. And by the way, I'm seeing some people having some issues jumping in. If you want to speak, I have to give you permission to speak, so just raise your hand to speak. So yeah, so why don't we like wrap up this conversation here? I think we've heard from a lot of folks. The goal of the Google Doodle, what is the goal? It's not actually engagement. It's not actually you know, search volume or revenue. The goal of the Google Doodle, okay, so Nabil just pasted it in actually. It's to educate folks. It's to educate folks about different cultures, to promote diversity, but honestly, it has a lot of different purposes. And the point that I want you to take away from this slide, that I want you to bring up in every single PM interview you go through, is that every time you have a conversation about metrics, what I want you to do is I want you to mention that there's not just the quantitative metrics at play, but that no metric is perfect, and that there will always be qualitative metrics to accompany quantitative metrics, and you need to understand both the holistic picture as well as the numbers that are coming up, and that will make you sound smart in a PM interview, because the interviewer will know that you're not just thinking purely like a machine, not just thinking about maximizing a specific number, but you're thinking holistically about what is the mission, what is the goal, what is the vision, and how does that intersect with the metrics, and how do we see that the metrics might lead us astray? If we just prioritize engagement, we might get a wrong result, so to speak. Okay, so I hope that was a helpful takeaway. We're going to move on to one more case study, and then we're going to talk a little bit about who I am and why I'm here and how to help you get a job. Okay, so this is a sort of simple one. I know this is an old picture, but let's say we're working on the Google Home device, and just warning for those of you who have your earphones, don't have your earphones in, I'm about to say something and it might trigger a response. So I'll say it in a weird way so that it doesn't do that, but because I don't want you to spoil the answer. But all I want you to do, really simple, after I say this command, I want the 40 of you in this chat, or the 50 of you in this chat, to be my Google Home. So what I want you to do is just tell me what do you think it should say as a result of this command. And we'll talk through a little bit. So the command is, first, the 2 magic words, flip a coin. So what should it say? Okay, Natalie, why should it, here, let me find you. Okay, what, tell me. It's a simple answer, but tell me why is it, what would you want it to say? Okay, I'm going to move on to Brian. What about you, Brian? What was your reasoning behind what you typed?
Kind of like someone else put this in the chat. I think what Natalie mentioned, it's a binary option, but there could be 2 possible answers, or binary answers right here. So getting that is kind of like a follow-up response to figure out like what is your answer to the coin flip versus what maybe Google's answer is.
What are you trying to do with me, basically? You're trying to engage me in something, right?
In like
You're
a
asking me-
conversation.
Got it. And what do you think my intent was for saying flip a coin in this, given the answer that you're giving? Like, what am I trying to get out of you? I'm trying to
get a response. So in this case, it's like a call and response, right? You want the voice assistant to kind of engage with you in a back and forth conversation, even though most of the time they don't necessarily engage in that type of behavior.
I'm trying to get a response, but Natalie, do you want to speak? I can't hear you, but you're typing. I think it's a little bit more Susie. Yeah, let's hear from you.
Well, when you flip a coin, I mean, you have to pick either heads or tails before it flips. So you're making a choice. And so maybe the prioritization is making a choice of the features or just choosing in general.
Yeah. So your assumption of my intent based on this command is that I am struggling to make a decision and I need help to make a decision, and I'm using this flip a coin mechanism to make that decision.
Not very wise way to make a decision, but sometimes that might be the only way, because maybe
Sure,
maybe
totally.
you can't really weigh them, maybe they weigh equally, and so you just have to go with one or the other and make a decision. And if your decision is right, great. If not, just reiterate and start again.
Sure. Okay. Can anyone else think of something missing with the answer so far? So I think the answer I'm hearing so far is like, okay, Stephen, I think that is the answer Brian wrote out. You know, one thing I loved about your answer, Brian, is that you said, okay, Stephen, you acknowledged me. You said I'm flipping a coin or something like that. Because in voice communication, especially with robots, it's like harder to kind of understand what people are saying, right? Like maybe you didn't hear me right, stuff like that. So you're kind of doing a good job listening, but I'm missing something. I am the user and I'm unhappy. Sam, what's up? What's missing?
I think you just want the answer, right? So I think the assumption here is that you probably already have, heads or tails in your mind. So to make it conversational, it could say something like, okay, Stephen, I flipped heads,
Yeah.
just to give the answer, right? But
Yeah,
also be like conversational about it.
Maybe you just want a simple answer. I think that's great, and I love that point. But Pete, you got the thing that I'm looking for. So Pete, tell me what's the thing that you added?
The sound of a coin flipping, just be like, I just thought it would be great to hear. I don't even think that the coin flip needs to be fair. I just think that people are asking Google to flip a coin for it. It should do that, and it should like play act at doing that.
Yep. And I wanted to ask you the philosophical question on whether or not the coin should land on a table or not, because who knows what's in Google's world. But
or in your hand and then a slap noise.
Yeah. But it's unclear. Does Google have hands? I don't know. Is there hands in the device? That's exactly what I was looking for, is the sound. Now, why is that so important in this experience? Pete, do you have an idea why I might care about the sound? Sure, it's realistic.
I feel like this is more gut feeling than something scientific, but it makes it more personable. These things always, you want them to act like they're a human being standing in the room next to you, and that's what you would hear if a human being was standing in the room next to you and you asked them to flip a coin for you.
Yeah, and I think that's absolutely right. Brian, can you going back to you on what you were saying?
Yeah, customer or user delight, right?
Yeah.
Things that surprise you, or things that, like, I can't give a tangible example right now, but there's this example of a robot at a hotel, right? And it made a face. Like, it gave you a toothbrush and it made a face and said thank you or whatever. And that animation was like, oh, I didn't expect that. So that's what I'm trying to get at in terms of customer delight.
Yep. I think we were talking earlier a little bit about what is the intent of the user here, and we're gonna move on from this one. So I'm gonna lower everyone's hands, but what is the intent of the user here? The intent of the user is likely not actually generate a random number between 1 and 2, like 2. They're actually probably looking for some sort of delightful experience. They're wanting to have some kind of interaction, some kind of play. And that's at least my assumption if I were to answer this interview question, would be, oh, the user is looking for a delightful experience. Let's provide some delight for them. And you may prioritize other things based on that. You may say, okay, then we're also going to ask you, would you like to play a game at the end of it? But you can make different assumptions. If the user is truly trying to make a decision, perhaps the flow of heads or tails works better, or what are you deciding between might work better. But my takeaway that I want you to have for this slide is that every time you answer a PM interview question, especially when you're interacting with the user, I want you to make an assumption or say what your assumption is about the intent of the user. I want you to say, this user is probably looking for delight. That's what I'm going to make an assumption. I'm going to build the feature set around that. Or I'm going to build this feature based on the fact that I think this user is anxious about a decision that they have to make. So again, my point that I want you to take away from this slide is always think about the user intent. Okay, Let's speed through this because I think most people here know what product management is, but just chat if you want me to spend more time or less time on anything. A little bit about me. I used to work at Google as a product manager. I worked on some of the stuff on this page. I now run the company Exponent. We help people get jobs in tech. We have online interview prep courses, coaching, resume reviews, and lots more. This is a really old screenshot. We also have a very popular YouTube channel as well with a lot of free content. So really quickly, what is product management? A lot of people think it's this, unfortunately for many, but fortunate for most, it is not. It looks a little bit more like this, the intersection of tech, user experience, and business. I tend to think of it a little bit more like this, where you're kind of at the intersection of a whole bunch of different stuff, and it really depends on where you are in the user journey. Day in the life, I'm going to skip this because I think everyone here already knows what product management is if you're interested in this talk. But if you're interested in what an actual PM does, I was always frustrated by it when I was learning about the role. So here's just kind of a sample of what it might look like. I'm going to skip this as well, but there's lots of reasons not to be a product manager. It's honestly not the best job. And I recommend plenty of other jobs in the space. And so if you want to talk about any of those jobs or how to interview for those jobs, please let me know. I'm happy to talk about it. Generally, the path to product management kind of follows three paths. It's like 3 steps. You have a resume review, you have an interview, and then you have the actual like kind of reference track or maybe take-home assignments and things like that at the very end. We're going to spend most of our time talking about interviewing, but I want to touch briefly on resume first. So what do people care about? They care about technical experience, product experience, software projects, leadership, and a tons of other stuff. And my recommendation is take what you have and showcase how it applies to those different sectors and go back into your previous jobs and make sure you highlight those things. Most common question I get right after this is, what do I do if I'm not technical? My recommendation is you are technical or you must like tech if you want to be a product manager. Demonstrate that. Demonstrate that on your resume. Go to hackathons, win prizes, write blog posts about tech, tailor your resume to showcase the skills that you have in tech, and just simply network and hustle. I have more thoughts on this again that I can elaborate, but I'm going to speed through it for sake of time. If you want, we published on our blog a checklist for the perfect product management resume as well. Okay, cool. Done with the resume part. And again, I'm super happy to spend more time on any parts of this, but I want to kind of go through it. A few different types of interview questions that you're going to get in the actual interview. Just checking time. Okay, 5:30. I want to keep this to about an hour, so I'm gonna skip the estimation question, but this is an example of what an estimation question might look like. At the end of the day, what it's about is not about getting the right answer. It's about showing that you know how to think through these problems. Okay, here's another we'll skip this one and come back to it, but this is an analytical question. Talks about, how would you PM YouTube's analytics product? What would you pick as the 3 key metrics and why? Okay, well, I think we have enough time. Let's dive into this one. So anyone in the chat, tell me what metrics would you pick here for YouTube's analytics? Okay, watch time, Akshita. Okay. Anyone else? We'll keep this just to the chat to be expedient. Views, cutting in. Also, everyone, make sure you're posting to everyone and not just to the hosts and panelists. Views, third-party links, likes, subscriptions. Okay. So I'm hearing a lot of things about viewers. And then Nikita mentioned something about monetization. I'm curious what metrics we might evaluate there. I am feeling like we're missing something quite large. We're missing big chunks of metrics. I love Manisha's answer. That's the real trick question. But I want to know 3 categories, and everyone's missing it. Like missing a big area. No. All I'm hearing is about the viewing, which is really important. That's really, really important. Okay, Sue, we're hearing ad click-through rate. Okay, yeah, so we have viewers, and then we have okay, and Natalie got it last, and Nikita. Video creation. There are 3 parties in YouTube. There's advertisers, there's uploaders, and there's watchers or viewers. We need to make sure that we cover all 3. in terms of how we think about the metrics and what we think about them. So just make sure you think about that when you think about a product that you work on. What are the different types of users interacting, and do we have a metric that captures all of them? Generally, a couple frameworks that I find to be helpful when you talk about this stuff. So, there's the game metric, which is first think about the goals, as one of the folks in the chat said. Think about the goals, then what actions support those goals. What metrics can you use to measure those actions, and then how would you evaluate it? So an example is, let's say the goal is aware, like we want to have people know about YouTube in new countries that don't know about YouTube. What actions might we see? We might see a lot of new users visit the website. What metrics support that? Number of referrals to new users, maybe, or something like that, per day. And then we kind of, the E is mostly just for evaluation, for making it into an acronym. But yeah, at the end of the day, what we want to see is we want to see a specific metric that measures the overall goal that you're looking at. So start at the top and move down. And then if you're stuck at like what goal to pick, look at the thing on the left, which is kind of the user acquisition funnel. So is it an awareness problem? Is it an intent problem? Is it a repeat problem? We want people to continue to use it. And these are just different categories of how to think about metrics. There's really no right answer. Just sort of understand the goals, and then you can prioritize the metrics. But make sure you cover all parties. Okay, this is another type of question that are very fun. So basically, what I want you to imagine, I usually have a hat, but I don't have my hat here. But I'm no longer Stephen. I'm Steve, and I'm a new data analyst at Facebook. I'm just recently out of college. And you need to ask me questions to diagnose what's going on with this. So go ahead and read it, and then ask me questions to understand the issue. And our goal is to diagnose what happened. Which persona or user segment dropped the most? Vicky, what types of user segments do you want to look at? That's a kind of a broad question. I'm not really familiar with user segments yet at Facebook. Is there a certain demographic you want to look at? Akshita, is there a specific region that's impacted? We're seeing the decline in the country of Brazil. Only. Which platform had the drop? We're seeing it uniform across Android and iPhone. Compare for seasonality. I don't really know. Neville, can you be more specific? I looked if it happened last year on, what day is today? June 24th. Didn't seem to. What usage metric is down? Views. Just people are not logging into the platform. People are not. We're not seeing them use Facebook today. Any tech issues too? I don't know. Do you want me to ping the other team? Is there any way we might be able to find out from the data that you can ask me an interesting question? Susie, the data center is down. Oh gosh, is it? How do we know if it's down? Is there a way we can know that? Internet outage there, Pete. I don't know. Do you want me to Google if Brazil? Do you know how should I just Google Brazil internet outage, or do you think GPT-3 might know? Are there any national holidays in Brazil today, Pete? I don't know. Is June 16th, June 24th actually? Do you want me to Google it? I could just go ahead and Google it for you. Have there been any recent platform releases? Yeah, we just launched a whole new platform yesterday. What platform is the data being distributed by, Trevor? I don't quite understand. Have there been any recent changes? Yeah, we just launched a platform yesterday. Uche, I don't know. There's a lot of news going on. Do you want me to Google some news or something? Is there any way we might find out from the data? Any specific user actions? Okay, sorry, too many questions. Let me pull this up. I might skip your question. So I don't know if there's any sports events. I don't know any political events, unfortunately. I don't know any holidays, but I would love for anyone to tell me how we might find that. I can ping the data security team, data center team. They said nothing is wrong, so I don't really know. I'm not seeing any increase in bug stuff. Everyone's busy watching soccer. Yeah, maybe that is the answer. Is there any way we could find out in the platform if that is what's going on? What current events might be going on? You know what's weird? Everyone's asking a lot about events. I work at Facebook, but I don't know what data I could pull to find out whether or not an event is the problem. Does anyone have any ideas specifically on the event piece? Raise your hand if you do. How I might find out if there's any event issues.
I mean, we should have a lot of event pages that we could actually go segment and see if which ones are in Brazil and which ones are doing very well today.
Great. Yes, that's exactly right. We happen to run an events business that is very popular, that is on Facebook. And so let's just check out, see if there's any events going on or maybe activity. I'm not seeing any events being planned. That doesn't necessarily rule it out, but not sure. So I called my country sales managers. They're all saying it's fine. I'm not seeing an increase in hashtags. What was the release? The release was a redesign of the newsfeed. Any way we'd find out what's going on here? Is there any way? Okay, Pete, tell me again. What are we gonna do?
So if I essentially group any of we're looking at usage metrics, which is a very nebulous thing, but if whatever metric specifically we're looking at that we're seeing decline, if we just dimension it by basically any statistic that we have about Brazil's users, which would include things like their IP address or which internet provider they have, which browser they are using to log in. All of those things would be powerful ways of trying to diagnose whether this was a technical issue of some kind.
Yep. Now let's say when I segment by internet provider, I'm seeing that there's one telecom that is completely gone today.
Oh,
so what might you believe as a result of that information?
That it's not my fault. Sounds like it's a Comcast issue, right?
Yeah. So, and by the way, this apparently actually happens, and we got to the right answer. There was a network problem. One of the telecom providers went down or had an outage, and it looks like all of our data is bad. It looks like we did something wrong on Facebook. And what Pete did is he said the word dimension. I also often like to use the word slice the data. And so essentially what you're doing is you're isolating variables. And so we could have done that in many cases in this process. We could have looked at, someone asked iOS versus Android. We sliced different countries. We could have sliced app versions. We could have sliced different, server-side versions or different times. You can demographics. There's a lot of different ways you can do that. And that's one way to be really effective in this question. The other way to be really effective in this question is to have a framework for how you're going about answering it and communicate your thought process. So don't just jump in with random questions, even though I know the format here kind of lent itself to do that. But say, okay, I think it might be either internal or external factors. And I'm going to focus on the internal ones. And then if you can't find anything there, okay, I'm going to take a look at the external factors. Then we go back to the internal later if we can't find anything. And just kind of be like a doctor. You're kind of like, okay, does it hurt here? Does it hurt there? Is there something here? And methodically go through it and communicate your thought process. The sort of like more perfect answer might be going through what it takes for a byte of information to get from the server to the client. So is it a human error problem? Are people like busy? Is it a device problem? Is it like the new the new iPhone just came out and everyone has an issue with it? Is it an iOS problem? Is it the new iOS came out and it's breaking it? Is it a Facebook app problem? Is it a server-side problem? Or is it maybe like a data center problem? And so you can kind of follow the bytes and see where the issue might be occurring. But there's no right answer. It's just all about showcasing your thought process and being able to slice and isolate variables is one important tip. Okay, we're getting on to the second to last question. And these questions are product design questions, and they're the most fun, in my opinion, most brainstormy. And in this question, they usually take some format of what's the future of X? What's the future of libraries? This is the one that we're going to talk about in this case. And my recommendation on the framework for this is, think first about users, then think about pain points, then think about ideas to address those pain points. Think about your vision, prioritize features, and then think about pitfalls. And mentioning pitfalls always kind of helps you in an interview because it mentions things that your interviewer might be thinking that are concerns. We don't have time to get through everything here, but what I want to talk about specifically is how you might go about brainstorming ideas. A lot of people are like, oh man, I don't know how to think of ideas. Like, I'm not creative, like blah, blah, blah. So I have a framework actually to help you think of ideas. And so what I'd recommend is your homework tonight is to go make an ideas list. And these can be anything that you think are exciting, big future ideas. So for instance, I like shared economy. I think, what Airbnb has done is really exciting. I think there's more that we can do there. And so how might you then, and in an interview, if you really research and understand shared economy, you can pull that out of your bag of big ideas and apply it to the problem at hand. So how might a shared economy revolutionize libraries? Well, that might look like a decentralized library where you can borrow books from your neighbors and everyone can post their books online. And it's sort of like a book sharing community thing. And that's a cool idea. That might not be the best idea, but again, come up with the ideas that you're excited about. AI is obviously one to explore, but be a little more specific. Like, what about AI use cases, or what about that is really exciting to you, and how might it apply to a lot of different scenarios? So when you're asked a question like, "What's the future of X?" you have an answer ready for you. Okay, we're gonna skip this one. Let me just check time. Okay, maybe we can do this one really briefly. This is more of like a product strategy question. And what I want you to imagine, and we'll do this really quickly, imagine it's the year 2024, and we work at Motorola, we just discovered we have 10 million of these phones lying around in storage. And we forgot that they're here. They still work. They're all totally fine. We can't really like change the product, but we can do some stuff to it. Like we could paint it, or we could do other stuff to it, and we need to sell them. Maybe not for that much, but we need to get them off our warehouse. Who has an idea of how we would, first of all, which customer segment would we target, and how would we slightly alter this product, both in mostly in positioning, but maybe in slight like cosmetics, to tailor to that customer segment? What users would we go for? Okay, Jen, I think you have permission to speak.
All right, I'm thinking of a few different personas and a few different audiences. First of all is most likely some of the millennials who are thinking about the nostalgia. Of course, the 2000s are coming back in, so another piece would be to show, all right, the Razor is back, and having that as a collectible item. The other one is also moving into the senior citizens who may not be acquainted with using a smartphone, and then offering this as an alternative as well for the for those who do need to have a phone just to call their family, or even as a more unique piece, selling just not just selling the phone product, but also selling it as a fashion accessory, especially taking advantage of the nostalgia value right now was Gen Z, to say this was one of the coolest phones in the early 2000s. And everyone, Paris Hilton, Lindsay Lohan, whoever the celebrities were of those days, were using this phone. It was the it phone of the day, and using that to market the product and the strategy.
Cool. Anyone else have anything else they want to add? Yeah, Trevor, or let's see, let me give you permission. 1 second. There you go.
Yes, create a nostalgia moment for younger generations.
And Trevor, how would we tailor this device to that?
We would add all the features to that device from smartphones, for instance, and apply it on there.
Well, let's say we can't really change the device. Is there a way we could still do it, like cosmetically? Because we can't really change the product, like we can't make it smart, you know? Anyone else have any ideas? Change the colors. What would we change it to? Like what if we're customizing these devices to these different segments? I want to hear a little bit more about like how are we going to tailor the product to those customer segments? Let's go with Nav, and then Mahima, and then we'll stop.
Yeah, I was thinking of, since you're trying to get rid of these as soon as possible, like I would think of some B2B play where you could sell it to like a company and put their branding on it, for example, and try to get rid of as many of these as possible.
Okay. Mahima?
Yeah, to my knowledge, I mean, so Gen X folks are really curious about how old devices work. I think without doing much of hardware, upgrades, we can, ask them to, explore how they use it, or ask them to come up with ideas to get more usage.
Okay. But how would we customize the device for the Gen X folks? You said that they're curious. Maybe how might we tailor the product to that?
So tailoring on the hardware side, it's not an option, I guess, right?
We can do some small things, but we just can't revamp. We can't make it a smartphone.
Okay. So in that case, adding shorter video or audio responses through software.
Okay, Spencer, I'll give you the maybe last one, Spencer.
I was gonna say just sell them to schools because like kids always want to use their phones. Just take away their phones and say use this instead. If there's like an active shooter situation, you can use these. All the other cases, you can't use your smartphones. That's one way to sell them.
Yeah. I think what I'm looking for here, I think we're close. What I'm looking for is if we're selling to kids, I want them to have Avengers on them. If we're selling to older adults, I want them to have a nice grip so that it's easy to hold and they don't fall. If we're selling it to people who care a lot about privacy, I want it to make sure that it's really clear to them what the parameters of the privacy are. I want it to have an extra passcode, maybe. So I think my takeaway that I want you to have from this is both customer segment generation, but also make sure that the products that you build are tailored to the users that you're building it for. And this is something that comes up in product interviews, but this is maybe a little bit more of a strategic question of like how might you market and position it, and more of a marketing oriented question. This may come up in product marketing manager interviews as well. So just make sure you're thinking about that in addition. I think we got close, but we weren't quite getting at what I was looking for with this question. Okay. I'm moving on. Sorry for those. I'm just lowering your hands. Most common question you're going to get is what's your favorite product and why? Here's how to answer it. Oh, I thought I had a slide. Here's how to answer it. 3 Ps. What I mean by that is I want your answer to have passion, I want it to have personality, and I want it to have perspective. Personality is obvious. I want it to be something you actually care about that shows something about your personality. People want to get to know you. I want it to have passion. I want you to genuinely be excited about it. Don't just pick a product because you think you can talk about it. But the last one is most important, which is I want you to have an arguable thesis about the product. I want you to say something that's controversial that people could disagree with. If you say, I like Gmail because it's fast, who cares? But if you say, I like Slack, and I think Slack is successful mostly because of its usage of emojis and bringing in delight into the workplace, that's arguable. I could say, no, I don't think that's why. Or, interesting. But you have an interesting take on that product. So develop your product opinions when you use these products. Have perspectives on what you think is good or not good about it. And bring that into your what's your favorite product interview. This question gets asked the most commonly, so it's worth having a rehearsal or just thinking about ahead on answering this question. Okay, couple quick techniques. I want to wrap up, so I have like 10 minutes for Q&A, basically to answer whatever is most important to you. Mention trade-offs. I mentioned that earlier. It always helps you kind of anticipate interviewer concerns. Always ask a question first. It always helps you get into a position of active listening as opposed to sort of like pushing your answer first. Learn how to backtrack with grace. You're going to get into problems all the time where you're going down a certain path. You're like, oh, shoot, I shouldn't have said that. That's okay. Just backtrack. Say, hey, actually, I don't like that direction. Do you mind if I change it? One tip I have is always doing active and passive pings. So as you go through the interview, say, hey, did you get that? Or does that make sense? And passive ping looks like, please interrupt me if anything doesn't make sense, and then keep going. Always try to use visuals if you can. I know everything's on Zoom now, but still having something typed up or having a little drawing board can help make things a lot easier to understand in interviews. I always like to show this, which is awesome affinity groups in product. If you know any that aren't listed on this page, let me know. I think it's really important to create opportunities for everyone to get in a product, whether it be a background that's familiar to folks in product management or not. So please do let me know if there's anything missing. And then a little bit more about Exponent. So we help people get jobs in tech. We have courses. We have tons of interactive questions. We have a Slack channel for everyone. We have a free blog and free YouTube channel if you want to start there. One-on-one coaching with lots of experts in tech. We even have a database of interview questions that have been asked in the last like week. Basically, every week we post new questions to it. So if you want to check out what's being currently asked, we have complete interview guides, peer-to-peer mock interviews as well. So if you ever want to practice the peer, we have 2 times a day. I think a couple of the first sessions are free as well. So you can practice the peer partner as well. Really great way to get ready. Slack channel is only for Exponent's paid users. That's right. If you want to stay connected, you know, try exponent.com, find us there. Please feel free to reach out to me via email if you want to talk to me more. Give us a shout out on LinkedIn if you enjoyed this talk. And I just want to end with this, which is that interviewing is really hard. Job search is really hard. It's even harder right now in the market. You know, take care of yourself. I built this whole company because this pain point was so high. And practice makes perfect. Get out there, keep trying, keep learning, take feedback, adapt. And if you feel like something's not working, come into Exponent, come to other communities. But it is possible to get into the role that you want to get into. It may take longer in this market or maybe harder in this market. But yeah, I just want to share that I empathize with the struggle of the journey. It's a tough journey. Careers are really important to people and really important to communities. So best of luck with your interview. And I hope this talk was helpful. Feel free to share any questions in the Q&A thing in Zoom. And I will make sure I get to answer them by the end of this talk, by the end of the hour. Here's the affinity thing. I think someone's asking to see it. AI product management. So yeah, we do have content already with artificial intelligence folks. It's such a changing and fast growing field. We're continuing to add content for roles that involve AI or relevant to AI. How would I recover in an interview if my answer isn't matching? I would just say, hey, like, I don't think, I would just check in. Is this what you're looking to hear? If they say no, I would say, oh, okay, like, can you tell me a little bit more about what you're looking for? I want to make sure I'm answering the question correctly. Just actively listen and understand what the interviewer is doing. Okay, so now I'm looking at the Q&A board. So if you have any other questions, don't post in the chat. Please post in the Q&A board. And I'm going to go back to this slide. So yeah, again, sorry, Sue, can you post in the Q&A board just so everyone can see it? It's a little easier for me.
Yeah.
So Nikita is asking, all right, oh, let me see, answer live. Okay. Please suggest some ways you'd like to come up with personas which are specific and not generic during the interview. Coming up with personas, I think practice helps a lot, but I would just be specific is my suggestion. If you're saying, oh yeah, persona would be men, you know, middle-aged men. It's like, okay, can you be a little more specific? Where do they live? Or what do they like? What are their interests? So just usually specificity helps you get to very specific personas that are not generic. Okay, Iris, an online auction. Oh, okay, it's not a question. Anonymous attendee, why I left Google. I left Google to pursue, there's so many different reasons that I could talk about, but I think the main reason for me is that I wanted to pursue trying my own thing. And I think there's nothing wrong with staying at Google as well. I loved my time at Google. I still recommend it. It's a great company to work for. But yeah, if you have more intent behind the question, let me know. I'm happy to answer more about it. Eileen, what are examples of common pitfalls? I would say not listening and rambling are the number one thing. Like an interview is more about listening than people think. So just make sure you actually listen and understand the question deeply, understand what they're evaluating. It's really, really important. Prep suggestions for strategy roles. So we did one of the strategy questions. There's more strategy specific questions that are in our database. You can check it out on our website. We have a whole course on strategy questions. I don't know that I have anything specific I could offer you in this session, but I mean, Porter's 5 Forces maybe is a good place to get started if you want to just think a little bit more about strategy and how you might talk about strategy in an interview. Okay, any last chance for any questions? Manisha, what strategies can help you in landing an interview? I would say the most important part to start is your resume. The second most important part to start is networking, to actually get out there and connect with people and message people, especially in the post-AI recruiting world. Human touch goes a long, long, long way. So get those connections, work, directly reach out to people, things like that. Resume tips, there's a whole blog post we have on it. I would say make it short. That's my main tip. Don't make it too long. Make it clear, short, to the point, and make it clear how your experience maps to the job description. People often don't read the job description. I'd highly, highly recommend you read it. It has exactly what they're looking for in it, and then make sure your resume is tailored to that. Is it necessary to stand out? Yes. I don't know what to say more about that one. Sorry, anonymous attendee. Question, do you have any tips to offer for PM candidates interviewing in the current virtual environment? I would make sure you have a professional virtual setup. Make sure your internet's good. But one tip I have is I use Post-it notes a lot. I write down things on Post-it notes and I show them on my screen. It helps me sort of just like even create visual space for the concepts that we're talking about. Otherwise, I think it is just less personal. So try your best to make it personal on virtual format, or ask to get a coffee, things like that, if you can, if you're local. Any thoughts on prep differences between B2C and B2C PM roles? I think most of the differences will come up in terms of go-to-market, but also potentially in like development cycles, things like that. So I would just expect the questions to be tailored or to be couched in a world that is coming from each of those worlds. So B2B has longer sales cycles. Maybe they're more working with salespeople. B2C, you're thinking more about conversion on the website as opposed to a sales cycle. So thinking about those, but that applies to a lot of different cases, basically. How would you use ChatGPT to help you out with the interview process and help with my resume? I do not recommend using ChatGPT for your resume. I think it can come up with ideas. That's totally fine, but it currently is not good enough to be. It's currently not necessarily good enough to surpass what you would write. Or I think it's great for editing, is my point, but I would not use it to generate ideas. It's totally good for editing, for review, for all that kind of stuff. But for actually writing it up, I think what I'd recommend is looking at the job description, understanding it deeply, talking to people, and tailoring your resume to that role. Do we prep differently? The position is remote. I don't think I have anything valuable to offer here. I think it really depends on. I think the only thing I'd add is just collaboration skills might be a little bit different in a remote world, and they might test for that. Whiteboarding tools, I don't have any specifics that I recommend. I use Whimsical a lot, and I just screen share that, but Google Docs is fine. Tailoring the resume is important. I'm hearing a lot of questions about, how important is it to stand out and things like that. What I'd recommend is, if you're really concerned, get a resume review. We have them at Exponent. They cost under $100. You can get an actual FANG recruiter to review your resume and tell you their actual thoughts on your resume. So if you're really concerned about your resume, just get a human to actually look at it and tell you, would this be a pass or a fail? Tailor the resume for each job. I think you can do that. It depends on how disparate the jobs that you're applying to are. If you're applying to like a director of PM job versus a product ops job, yes. If you're applying to 2 PM jobs at Uber and Lyft, maybe not. So it really depends on the job description and if they're different enough. But I will say people are not tailoring things enough nowadays. They're just mass applying everything, and it shows. People can tell. Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions in the Q&A board. So okay, these are the last few questions I'll answer. How much are we utilizing AI to help people? We're utilizing it a lot. We're utilizing it in lots of different ways. Would love to hear a little more context of what you're looking for specifically. Are MBA candidates preferred? Not necessarily. What programs and services Exponent offers to assist PM candidates land jobs? We have interview courses, coaching, resume reviews, resume help. We have job search strategies. We have referrals. If you want to get job referrals, you can post to our board and get job referrals. We have a private Slack community. We have like over 200 videos of actual PMs answering the interview questions. So tons of stuff to check out there. Not sure what this question is. And how many pages are too long? I would do 1 page for a resume. And I'll end there.
All right, wonderful. Thank you so much, Stephen, for your time. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching as well. You have Exponent and the website on screen here, so take a check that out, both on their website and on their social media, and reach out to Stephen. For now, thank you so much for watching this webinar and engaging. It was really fun to see everyone answer questions live and everything. And so from here, thank you so much and have a great rest of your week. Bye.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.